Let's talk a little bit more now about what is going to happen in court today. We are joined now by Fordham Law School professor Cheryl Bader.
Professor Bader is a former federal prosecutor and is closely following developments in President Trump's case, as we all are. Professor, good morning. Thanks for being with us.
Good morning. It's nice to be here.
All right, you're familiar with the arraignment process from inside the courtroom. Can you give us an overview of what's going to happen when the former president surrenders in court today?
Yeah, the arraignment is actually a very simple procedure. It's the first initial procedure after somebody is arrested, and it's where charges are formally read to a defendant. Usually the biggest thing that happens at arraignment is the judge will decide what the conditions are for somebody's release. But here we know that Trump will be released on his own recognizance, which is his promise to come back to court. Interestingly, the changes in the bail law that many conservatives have been railing against work in Trump's favor because the judge can't even set a monetary bail upon him.
And let's talk about the case itself and the indictment. It is still sealed, but there is talk about him facing multiple counts and at least one felony count. How serious are these charges?
Well, they are felony charges, so that makes them serious by nature. I expect that he will face several charges because the way prosecutor charges a crime. So here, there was one lump payment to Stormy Daniels by Cohn, but he was reimbursed by Trump in multiple payments. So each of those payments can constitute a separate crime, and it can be charged in multiple ways. So one act can be more than one crime. So for instance, it could be that it is a tax violation. It could also be a violation of election law. And prosecutors often want to also include a conspiracy charge because a conspiracy charge allows them to get in acts and conversations with co-conspirators, even if those people are uncharged. So it gives them a lot of flexibility for evidence.
Let's talk about the strength of the DA's case. We know that basically the indictment is still sealed. Do you think there's going to be any surprises when the charges are actually made public later today and unsealed?
So we've been hearing a lot about what these charges are about. So I'm waiting to see myself if there are going to be any surprises. But I think it's going to come down to whether the jury believes that Trump actually made these payments to Michael Cohn, these hush money payments, in order to further the campaign. Because if his defense is, look, I would have made these payments anyway. I wanted to keep this woman quiet because I didn't want to embarrass my family. I wanted to protect Melania. And the jury believes that, then the prosecution's case can fall apart.
Mr. Trump has spoken out against DA Alvin Bragg and has made some inflammatory statements on social media about the case. What could happen if he appears in court and maybe shows a similar attitude or similar demeanor or says similar things?
Look, I think the judge has cause to admonish Trump. He's made some very inflammatory, incendiary remarks. And we've seen before that Trump, who often measures his words to let his supporters know what he wants, but tries to evade any responsibility, has had real impact in terms of people taking up violent action, for him. So I think the judge would be right to admonish him to be careful about what he posts on social media. But I don't think the judge is going to go so far as to impose a gag order. Gag orders are frowned upon because they interfere with someone's First Amendment right. And the First Amendment is particularly protective of what we call political speech. And certainly with a candidate running for office, I mean, this is going to be, First Amendment protected political speech.
So if there is no gag order implemented, I'm assuming just based on what we've seen from the former president, we'll basically hear or see everything through his social media platform or through, I guess, other comments. Let me ask you about the lawyer strategy for Trump. Should they try to discredit Michael Cohen? Is that what you think is going to be, I guess, the tip of the spear where they have to attack this case?
Absolutely. I think they are going to go after him in a big way. And I think there's lots to go after, right? He's admitted to actually committing a crime. He's also has a history of changing his story, and that's, going to be great fodder for cross-examination. But they're going to have lots of corroboration. They're going to have documents, emails, conversations, other witnesses that corroborate him. And I think they're going to point out, this is someone of Trump's choosing, right? He aligned himself. This was his fixer. So I think we'll definitely see battles over the credibility of Michael Cohen here.
Cheryl Bader, Fordham University professor of law, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
It was good to be here.